If you want your podcast to make money through advertising, you must first find the advertisers. Signing an ad campaign with the advertiser is great, but now the pressure is on you to deliver. And it's not just about giving them the number of downloads or impressions you promised, it's about being effective at selling the product or service to your audience. So, today we're going to talk about writing and recording ads for your podcast because let me tell you, this is an art form. And if you aren't successful, your advertisers may not come back and renew. In fact, they may even drop out of the current campaign, depending on your cancellation policy. So let's first talk about podcast ads in general. There are three types of ads. We have pre-roll, mid-roll, and post-roll. Pre-roll is anything before your show actually starts. Those ads are usually shorter because you want to get to the content faster, ideally 15 seconds or less. Although if programmatic ads are running on your show, you could get stuck with a 60-second pre-roll. This isn't ideal because you don't want people to stop listening before they actually get to the real content. And then you have mid-roll spots. These are ads that appear sometime after your show starts and before it ends. It usually requires you to toss to break or use some sort of music transition to the break since it occurs somewhere in the middle of your content. These ads are usually 60 seconds, but I have seen them as short as 30 seconds. And then we have post rolls. So, as the name suggests, it happens after you wrap up your content, after your episode is complete. Direct sales campaigns rarely use post rolls, but you can run programmatic or vast ads as post rolls, depending on your provider. The length really doesn't matter because, hey, it's at the end of your show. But since the ads are usually programmatic, they are usually 30 to 60 seconds long. If you are writing and recording ads, then it's going to be for a direct sales campaign where you're working directly with a brand. Most brands will send you some sort of one sheet. Sometimes it's more than one sheet with information, or perhaps just some bullet points they want to be included in the ad. You will also need a call to action or CTA. What does the brand want the listener to do after hearing this ad? Sometimes it's a promo code. Sometimes it's a link. Hey, sometimes it's both. And then other times they're not worried about attribution from your podcast and they just want you to help get the word out about their product or service. Let's take a look at this example. Okay, so this is what bullet points or information from an advertiser could look like. This actually came from an ad agency who was working with a brand, so it's a little bit more structured. Sometimes you don't get that. Sometimes you get an email with some bullet points and information. But I still wanted to show you what this looks like, okay? So up here at the top, you have the flight dates. Flight dates could be, it depends on what they mean by that. It could mean a couple different things. But in this case, it means how long is this content good for? In other words, when, a lot of times they want to switch up the content and they'll give you new bullet points and new things that they want to focus on. And so this information we know is good for these dates. The spot length, 60 seconds, that's pretty standard in podcasting. And then it goes through the bullet points. So up here, they have some ideas on what you can say as far as an introduction and to get the ad going. They call that thought starters. So most of the time, they don't want you to read this verbatim. They want you to connect with your audience. You know your audience best, but these are just some ideas of how you can get the ad going. Next, they want you to motivate your audience. And in this section, they talk a lot about personal endorsement. In this case, the advertiser did give us a free way to test what they're trying to sell. So we were able to talk about it from personal experience. I've talked about call to action before, and they want this read verbatim. It is mandatory. Look for the stuff in red, okay, and follow it to a T. So in this case, there was no promo code, no direct link. They weren't looking for that type of information, but they did want us to say very specific things at the very end to get the listeners to take action. And then this is important too. Look for things that you're not allowed to say. It's really smart when advertisers do that because sometimes we say things and legally, that's not going to work. So make sure you look for things you're not allowed to say. The important thing with this is that you sound conversational. And again, know what your audience would like and know what they wouldn't like. Because if you go completely outside of what your audience likes, they're probably not going to like the ad, which means they're probably not going to take action, which means you didn't do the advertiser any favors. There are 4 steps to writing a successful podcast ad that connects with your audience. All this information is available in a PDF, which I will include in the video description. The first step is to relate to your audience in regard to whatever it is that you're promoting. Why should they care about this product or service? If I am selling a mattress, and let's say my audience is parents with young kids, I'm probably going to draw on some pain points that parents have when sleeping. Maybe you could say something like this: Are you waking up? Are your kids waking you up throughout the night? Don't you wish you could get a great night's sleep? Something like that. You can also relate to your audience by sharing your own personal experience or pain points. For example, as a new mom, I can't remember the last time I had a good night's sleep until I found XYZ mattress, right? You've heard that before. All right, the second step is information. Give your listeners information about the product or service. This is usually the bullet points, right, that the advertiser sends you. Make sure you follow any directions that they give you. They may have a quota on how many of those bullet points you have to include. They may want you to give your personal experience as well, especially if you've been given the opportunity to test their product or service in advance. And the third step is opinion. What do you think about the product? How can this help your audience? Maybe you can even provide an example or share a story based on something you personally went through. The key here is to be 100% honest. Don't lie and say this is the greatest product in the world if it's not. And please don't over exaggerate, because you will end up sounding inauthentic to your audience. And as a result, you could lose their trust. And the fourth and final step is action. This goes back to the call to action we discussed earlier. What action should your listeners take after hearing the ad? Sometimes advertisers just want you to mention a promo code or a link, and sometimes there is a short paragraph of something they may want you to read verbatim. Make sure to follow their instructions. When recording your ad, make sure you're using the same microphone and equipment you typically use when recording your podcast. You don't want the audio from your podcast to sound different than your ad spot. Remember, you want everything to flow as seamlessly as possible. And I also recommend you stick to the agreed upon time for the ad. So if it's 30 seconds, try to keep the ad to 30 seconds. If it's 60 seconds, try to keep it to 60 seconds. It doesn't have to be exact, but give them what they paid for. You want the ad to pique the interest of your audience so they complete the call to action. That is your job. And then get back to the show as quickly as possible. For more information about how we here at Independent Podcast Network can help you find more advertisers for your podcast so you can focus on creating great content, visit the link in the description below.